Hello and welcome to another edition of Superhero Movie Review Time. I'm your host Grant Liston, a very bored Englishman. And this week we'll be reviewing the film Logan. This is a really good film. Like, very good film. I can't understate it enough. It is incredibly good. This is only the second time I've ever seen this film because I saw it in the cinema and I thought, wow, what an incredible movie. And to this day, I still remember everything that happened in it after just one viewing. I of course had to re-watch the film for this review, and I'm going to have a hard time reviewing this film on the fact that I like to go scene by scene, act by act, and nitpick here and there, but there's really not a lot to say about this film. Released in 2017, Logan is the final outing for Hugh Jackman's iconic Wolverine. Directed by James Mangold, this film scored an almighty 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. So this is not going to be one of my usual reviews where I nitpick the crap out of it, but I'm going to talk about a few things that I really enjoyed and possibly didn't really enjoy too much about this film. So the film starts off with an old grizzled Wolverine, and the adamantium inside his body is starting to poison him. And you see when he takes on a group of thugs that his claws don't quite retract as quickly as he used to, and they're stuck in his hand. And it's one thing for sure, this film is incredibly graphic and very gory. I mean, I thought Kick-Ass was very bloody and whatnot, but this is visceral. This is very intimate in its violence, and holy hell, there's a lot to go around. So we see Logan's working as a limo driver, earning enough money to buy a boat so he can store an Alzheimer's-riddled Charles Xavier to safety. And can I just say, Patrick Stewart does a phenomenal job as Charles Xavier. This is probably his best outing ever. This is, I'd say, if you're going to describe his previous films, there is emotion, there is character, but he's very stoic. In this film you see a real vulnerability and a real earnest performance from Patrick Stewart. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, he is very synonymous with this character as well as, say, Picard. I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, you see, so I've not seen too much of The Next Generation. But Patrick Stewart is up there with some of the all-time greats, and personally a hero of mine. That being said, this film makes me sit there and wonder a lot of times, are they going to bring up Magneto? Because, Charles Xavier goes hand in hand with Magneto here, and this is possibly the very first X-Men story that Magneto is dead before Charles Xavier, because usually the stereotypical thing is the mansion burns down and Charles dies and Magneto rises up. So this seems to be the first story where Magneto has perished before, but they never bring it up. And I don't know whether this film would benefit even more, even though it's an incredible movie anyway, but would this movie benefit from Eric Lynch's introduction, or will it hinder it even more? But I don't like the fact that they don't mention him, or really any other X-Men, because there's so few mutants left, and they're joined by Caliban, played by a really engaging Stephen Merchant. Very much. I'm not sure of some of his work. I've seen him in extra work here and there, like Big Bang Theory, Movie 43. Don't watch that movie, it's awful. So I'm not really aware of his acting range, but yeah, he does a really good job as the mutant Caliban. Okay, so now the film brings us its first proper curveball, because it introduced a child actor. And I do not like child actors. I really don't. I mean, there are some that are good, there's some that are okay, but a lot of them are, no, they really annoy me, where they're trying to act when they're not just acting. They're putting on that you can really tell they're trying. And okay, never knock people for trying, but it's a Hollywood film, children actors. I usually stay away from these sort of films. But Daphne King plays Laura, and this is by far the best child actor I've ever seen, ever. Hands down, no competition. She's maybe 10, 12 years old in this film, and so it was 4 years ago now, so yeah, she's probably in her teens. This girl gives an amazing, mature performance. She's so grounded and so realistic. It's phenomenal. truly, truly phenomenal. I cannot understate this enough. What a performance. So it seems that Laura has been made from Wolverine's DNA, which basically makes her Logan's daughter. And I thought, okay, so we're doing a father-daughter team-up thing. I'm a bit hesitant, and then instantly forgot about, because once again we come back to the graphic action. We see her, she's got 2 claws coming out of either hand, just like her dad, and one coming out of the foot. That's fucking badass. Like, holy crap, that's amazing. Like, her fighting never once looks comical, never looks over the top. It's like a vicious piranha. This vicious lioness is just attacks, and there's so much blood, and it's amazing. It's so unbelievably gory. This movie basically plays out like a Lethal Weapon movie, with the old grizzled retired cop saying, "I'm getting too old for this shit," but then keeps on fighting. And that's kind of Logan in this movie. He just wants to buy his boat and take the professor to safety, because his Alzheimer's makes his powers uncontrollable and can kill people like that, like proper Thanos style. So he wants to take him out to sea and basically let him live out his days in peace. But he's been brought in to this bullshit that is Laura's life. She has escaped from the military base known as the Essex Corporation, and you follow X-Men nerds like me will know this means Mr. Sinister. No Mr. Sinister in this movie. To this date, there has not been a live-action Mr. Sinister. So this is where we come to the film's villains. We get the leader of the Reavers, Pierce, played by a scenery-chewing Boyd Holbrook, and he plays Dickhead really, really good. But he kind of floats in and out of this film like an annoying mosquito. He's not really in the movie, he just appears at like wrong moments to disrupt the villains. He doesn't really have an arc, he's just an annoyance. But then we get the next villain, and I kind of thought, oh, could this be Mr. Sinister in disguise? Because the actor is Richard E. Grant, who is a phenomenal villain actor. Like, he brings a gravitas to his performance. He really controls the scene, and he's very, very stage-like, very, very stage-like. And I kind of thought that kind of theatrical side of him would play an incredible Mr. Sinister. But no, he plays Dr. Rice, and he's introduced an hour into the movie and gets 3-4 scenes before the end, and it's like, bloody hell, like, I think the real villain in this movie is time. Laura's trying to make her way to a place called Eden, which is apparently a mutant sanctuary, and Logan agrees to take her there before realising it's just out the back of an X-Men comic. So there's X-Men comics in the X-Men universe. I know they explained it as they become cult icons and blah blah etc., but that kind of took me out of the film just a little bit. I was a bit like, oh. And they're talking about the Savage Lands, and I'm thinking, and that's probably the one storyline that I wasn't too keen on anyway in the original cartoon. But I digress. They're basically on a long-ass road trip throughout most of this movie. One of the stops on their trip takes them to a farm where they're taken up by the night by a lovely family until it all goes wrong. This film introduces a villain, a Wolverine clone who kills Charles Xavier. I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh, not move on. It's horrible. I don't want to see Charles Xavier die again. But it's the fact that Charles Xavier thinks he's talking to Logan, and it's not. It's the evil X-24 who just carefully rolls him over and stabs him in the heart. Luckily, the ensuing fight is incredibly gory. There's a bit where Logan gets stabbed in the armpit. I mean, ow! So now we wind down to the film's conclusion, and this is where the film comes to a proper screeching halt just after Charles is buried, because it's an elongated montage of them just driving, and there's some real pacing issues here that need to be addressed. The film's 2 hours and 15, they could cut 15 minutes off and nothing would change of just them driving. Admittedly, you do get a hilarious scene where Laura starts speaking and Logan can't believe it because she's been mute this entire time, and then she's just rapidly firing off in Spanish. She's like, "Shut up!" I thought that was really, really fun. So Logan and Laura finally do arrive at the camp hold before they go to Eden, where all these children, mutants, are holed up and camping around. And I get a kind of Lost Boys vibe here, and a little bit of Return of the Jedi. I'm not really keen on this whole thing. And once again, it's just wasting time until the final battle. And that final battle's not that great, because the kids leave Logan asleep and they go running off to Eden, but the Reavers and Dr. Price have caught up with them all and are hunting them down in the woods. Admittedly, you do get an amazing Wolverine berserker moment where he just eviscerates the lot of them. And that's really fun. But when you focus on the children and them doing their powers, it's not really interesting. You think, like, the kids themselves could do much more, but all they mainly do is just run away and get rugby tackled. Like, this happens at least 6 times in the space of 5 minutes, and it's very, very uncoordinated and messy. And then the 2 main villains kind of just get killed off really unceremoniously. I mean, Richard E. Grant's Dr. Price just gets shot in the face by Wolverine, and the other guy, Pierce, kind of gets like ganged up on by all those children who all use their powers and kill him, and it's not very satisfying because he's not been in the film enough for me to care, if that makes sense. So now we come down to the final battle between Logan and X-24, and it's gruesome. It's not as good as their first one, but it's really, really gut-wrenching to see Wolverine beaten up like this. And in the end, he's actually thrown and impaled on this like tree, and it's gut-wrenching. It's truly, truly gut-wrenching. The fight actually ends with Laura blowing X-24's head off with an adamantium bullet. More on that later. So the film ends exactly how Yukio said it would in The Wolverine. He's on his back, blood everywhere, holding his own heart in his hands, and as you see, he's laying on his back, blood is everywhere, and he's holding Laura's hand. That is insanely beautiful. How can a simple comic book movie just make me feel this invested, this emotional over fictional characters? It does a phenomenal job. And the closing scene is Logan is buried, and they take the cross and they turn it the other way around to make the X-Men symbol. Okay, a little bit corny, but I liked it. And that was Logan. I realise I've missed out a lot of key scenes that people enjoy, and I've kind of just glazed over the whole thing, but this is not a film you can sit there and talk about scene by scene, because it's all very self-explanatory and there's no plot holes, there's no real plot conveniences, or plot armour. It's all very, very basic, done in such a dramatic fashion that engages you in to keep watching. So I know this is not like my usual review, but it's all I can give, and I'm probably going to sound very biased here, but I do really love this movie, and if you've got the attention span, I highly recommend you watch it. But to keep things back on normality, yes, I'm still going to do my 3 good and 3 bad. Starting, of course, with the bad at number 3, the underused villains. Yeah, Richard E. Grant, completely wasted, and Boyd Holbrook, whatever his name was, they're just not in the movie. Their story arc is, we are bad people creating mutants, and our mutants have escaped. So we're rounding them all up. They're shepherds. They are a pair of shepherds. Glorified shepherds with guns. And if they had more of an intrigue and more of a reason why, instead of just we're evil for evil's sake, I would care more. But no, the main villain of this film is actually time. But for everything else, it's not great for me. And number 2, the entirety of the last act. I know, the Berserker Wolverine moment is great, but as I said to you before, it reminds me of the Return of the Jedi, and it's all very, very messy and just like, oh, the kids, we've got to save the kids, and I think of the kids as Ewoks here, I just don't care. And as soon as Charles Xavier goes, and admittedly, I like how they did his death, but as soon as he goes, the film really loses some personality. and it just drags. It really does drag after he goes. And the number one thing I do not like about this movie, adamantium bullets. I do not care for them. So, if they weren't used in X-Men Wolverine Origins, where they're used to wipe his memory, it could maybe be more forgivable. However, this film makes it clear that Wolverine kind of wants to die, and he's carrying around this single bullet for the entire film for when he wants to go on his own terms, he'll load it up, boom. Okay? It's kind of fitting, I understand it. But those bullets have been made clear they're not going to kill him, they're just going to erase his memory. Why would he want to erase his memory as an old man? He can't start again. He's dying and wants to die. I know you can say his regenerative powers aren't there, but no, there's too many making excuses for such a stupid plot device. Yet, this same bullet is used to kill X-24, who's a clone of Wolverine, who I imagine also has adamantium because he's also got the claws and some of the regenerative powers. My point is, they're stupid and I do not like them. But now we're going to get on to the good stuff. Here are the 3 things I really do like about this movie, starting of course at number 3. Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of friends about this film, my friends Damien and my friend Stephen, shout out to you guys, hello, and both of them admitted that this film is bloody violent, and we all love it. Oh my god, it's so violent. Okay, they made an Xbox game of X-Men Wolverine Origins. I don't think they made one for the Wolverine, and I'm positive they not made one for Logan. They need to make one for Logan, because I want to play this. Oh, the whole bit where we're in the Hearst casino, Charles Xavier's gone crazy and his Alzheimer's kicked in, and everyone's frozen and Wolverine's clawing his way through the lobby. Glorious bit of cinema. But it's not even just Wolverine who's violent. When you look at the stuff that X-24 does, he decapitates some hillbilly farmer dude. He massacres a family on the farm, just because he can. It's brutal. And in the first 10 minutes of the movie, you think Wolverine's been shot 3 times. This film is gory, and it's bloody, and I love it. I may need to see somebody. And at number 2, keeping Yukio's prediction. I genuinely thought watching The Wolverine, with her making that prediction of Wolverine's going to be dead, laying on his back, blood everywhere, holding his own heart in his hands, it was going to be like a cop-out, and it was just going to be nothing. But no, they didn't use the literal translation of that, because it wasn't his beating heart, but it was his life, his daughter, the thing he loves the most. I think it's a very beautiful way of putting it, and it kind of keeps you second guessing. But it also, I didn't actually realise that until about a year later. It was only through the grapevine and talking to friends about X-Men movies and such that this actually came up, and I thought, that's brilliant. And that is the beauty of having one director tell one story, because he knows, or she knows, what they want and where it's going. And when you get several directors doing it, it becomes a jumbled mess. And the number one thing I love about this movie is, I'm going to have to group them together, because it's Daphne Keane, it's Patrick Stewart, and it's Hugh Jackman. 3 heavyweight performances. We talked about Daphne Keane before. What an absolutely mature performance for such a young person. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant stuff. And then we move on to Patrick Stewart playing Charles Xavier, and this one you see the real vulnerability, and it's glorious. And then of course Hugh Jackman, and if this is his swan song, then he's going out on top. He has done a phenomenal job. I love him, and I cannot heap more praise onto this character and this actor for doing such a good job. Now, my one theory here is that this isn't going to be his last turn. I think he's got one more, because so far from counting, he's been in 9 X-Men movies, and Wolverine is Weapon X 10. I think he's got one more left in him, and I think it's going to be in Deadpool 3. Now, I actually made this prediction after the first Deadpool movie came out, and I said, okay, he'll be in the second one, but they brought in Cable instead. I'm probably wrong, but I would really love to see it. That all being said, I'm going to give this, I have no hesitation giving this film 9 out of 10. it is worth the watch. Thank you all so much for watching. Please feel free to like the video, share the video, leave me them dirty comments, and I'll see you all next time for... oh god. It's X-Men Dark Phoenix. Mother...